It was a red Schwinn, and it had a St. Christopher's medal wrapped around the frame right underneath the handlebars. And on the handlebars balanced a glow-in-the-dark guardian angel. And that was the bike that I first learned how to ride, a two-wheeler. But I didn't learn on my own. I had training wheels, and I had the steady hand of my dad on the handlebar. And up and down the sidewalk he'd go with me as I was trying to learn how to balance and trying to learn how to trust his guiding hand. And then finally, when he took the training wheels off, and I started making trips around the block, he'd hold on to the back end of the seat and run down the back alley, and I can still hear his tennis shoes shuffling in the stone alleyway as he tried to help me gain confidence in my ability to ride a two-wheeler. It's not only a story about the importance of the steady and firm and guiding hands of our dads in our lives, but you know what? We're all kids learning how to ride bikes, learning how to find our balance. And we don't do it alone. We can't do it alone. We need the steady and firm hands of others who accompany us. We need to hear the shuffling of the feet next to us just to know that we're not alone. I will never withdraw my hand. That's what God told Job. And we hear that reading in the first reading. Job, my gosh, he's been suffering for 39 chapters. Job was a man who had tons of blessings, and all at once, in the snap of a finger, they were gone. And for 39 chapters, his three best friends taunt and tease him, telling him that his suffering is his own fault for bad choices that he made. Or his suffering is a sign of God's displeasure with him and God's punishing him. And Job would have none of that. Job knew that he wasn't perfect, but Job was known as a righteous man, someone who made good choices, moral choices. So he said, this suffering is not because of bad choices I've made. And he would not believe that his God was out to punish or torture him. And so Job responds to his friends who taunt him for 39 chapters, and in the middle of their taunts, he cries out to God, asking for an answer. Why this suffering? And finally, in chapter 40, God speaks. And God says, I will never withdraw my hand from you. He says, Job, I was the one who created the earth from the very beginning. I created all the earth and the seas, and I set the boundaries for the seas, and I threw stars in the sky, and I made every creature, and my hand is still at work. And I'm at work in you and in your life, and I will never withdraw my hand. Now, God doesn't explain where suffering comes from. God doesn't give Job any of the answers that he was looking for, but what he gives Job is the confidence in knowing we have a God who will not withdraw his hand from us. Sometimes we get a little cocky, and sometimes we get a little confused, and sometimes we think that we're about controlling our lives. And we forget that God's got a hand. His hand is on the steering wheel, it's on the seat, it's all around us. And sometimes we still get a little indignant, and we don't want God's hand to guide us. And so my question to you is, what area of your life do you need to be attentive to? Maybe to even surrender to. Maybe you've been striving and trying to do it all on your own. What area of your life do you need to turn over with confidence, knowing that God's hand is there? Is there to save us? Is there to guide us? Is there to stop us from falling? And the proof of that is Eucharist, God's hand that feeds us. The very hand of God here today, faithful to his promise that His hand is always at work and He will never withdraw. And so we come today to be fed, to be nourished, to be reminded here in this sacred place, at this sacred table, that we have a God who's faithful to His promise. And so we give thanks today, thanks to our dads, who remind us of the strength that surrounds us and protects us. And whether our dads are with us here, or whether our dads are with God in heaven, they still guide and protect us. We give thanks to a God who's faithful to His promise to Job and throughout all of history. And the very word Eucharist itself means thanksgiving. Thanks to God, whose hand feeds us.